Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining today's webinar, Unmatched Network Visibility with LiveNX and LiveWire. I'm Stacey Jambura, Event Marketing Coordinator here at LiveAction. And today I'm joined by Lee Cox, Senior Sales Engineer for LiveAction, and he'll be running through a product demonstration of LiveNX and LiveWire. For today, we'll be focusing on some key use cases that will help increase your overall network visibility and reduce your team's mean time to resolution. If you do have questions along the way, please make sure to enter those into the chat bar, and we will address those at the end of the demonstration. So with that, I'll hand you over to Lee, who will walk you through the live demo.
Hello everybody, my name's Lee Cox. I am a sales engineer here at LiveAction, and today I'm going to give you a demonstration, a quick look at what LiveAction does. So LiveAction and its front end LiveNX ingests SNMP data, we ingest flow data, and we API integrate into third-party providers such as SD-WAN providers and cloud providers to give you a full end-to-end view of what's happening with your network and what's happening with the applications as they traverse your network. We also have packet capture technology. This technology can be used to produce flow and performance metrics in areas of the network where you're not able to do that. And you can also go from a high-level view of all the flows traversing your network. You can really pinpoint a flow of interest, and you can cross-launch from that flow of interest to the underlying packets to do a deep-level forensic analysis of what's happening with that particular data. There's two ways to interrogate the product. We've got a desktop client and we've got a web UI. And we'll go through a use case using both clients. I'm going to start with the desktop client because it gives a good visualization, a topology view, very much like a Visio diagram, and it's a good mental model of what the network looks like. So we're looking at my demo environment here, and we can see in the middle we've got this MPLS service provider, and hanging off that we've got a number of sites. And if I scroll and as I zoom into one of my sites, we can see network devices that are represented by these green circles. And if we're scrolling further, we can see the interfaces and we can see the bandwidth going over those interfaces. And we can also see how those interfaces are interconnected to other network devices. And I can scroll right out. So this could be a global network infrastructure. There could be different areas within your network. And I can scroll in and out to particular areas of interest. So the next thing we do is we overlay the flow data. So if I click on the flow tab, you can see a consolidated view of all the flows traversing the network. We've broken them down by their different application groupings. And if I click on a particular device, we can see the raw flow data coming into that device. So we've got the source, destination IP, port, bandwidth, and other metrics that you'd expect to get from IPFix or NetFlow. And we can play this information back. So you might have had a problem at the weekend or say on a Sunday night, and you can go back to that date and time and you can replay that data. So if you had a particular issue, you don't have to try and recreate that issue. You can actually replay the real data when that issue occurred. Okay, so we're going to go through a fault scenario now. We're going to look at some voice traffic. We're going to look at some DSCP markings and some shaping, and we're going to correct the DSCP marking and shaping using the LiveNX front end. Okay, so there's a number of ways that I can filter to look for specific traffic. I've got this dynamic filter here, and if I press on the question mark, I can see the different filter syntax that I can use. So I can slice and dice any way I want to using source and destination IP address, application, protocol, and so on. I'm going to use a static filter. So these are just predefined filters. And I'm going to look for one called Birmingham Voice. And if I look at that particular filter, I can see it's just looking for it's looking for RTP, and it's looking for a particular IP subnet that associates with that site. And I can change my display here. So I'm going to change to DSCP. So I'm filtering for Birmingham Voice, and I want to see what DSCP value the voice traffic has. And if I scroll in further, I can see that the traffic, when it leaves Birmingham, it's not marked. It's in the best effort queue. So that is an issue that I want to rectify. But the traffic coming back, so the voice traffic coming back from the endpoints here in New York, that's marked correctly. So it looks like I've got a one-way DSCP issue. Also notice as well that this particular device has turned orange. So that's letting me know there's a problem on one of the interfaces. And if I scroll in further, it highlights the interface that I have the issue on. So it's this outgoing interface in Birmingham. So now I want to modify my QoS policy to fix both of these issues. So if I click on the QoS tab again, and if I double click, I get to this view of the device itself. So I can see two interfaces here, and my input interface on the LAN side, I want to set a DSCP marking. So if I right click on the input interface, click on QoS, and click on Apply Policy to Interface, I'll click on Input, and I'll click on my policy Set DSCP and say OK. So that is now pushing a DSCP policy to the device. So let's have a look in a little bit more detail what I'm doing there. So if I look at my QoS, and I click on Manage QoS Settings, you'll see we've got this front end. So we've got a front end where we can modify Cisco QoS policies. So let's look at the policy we've just applied. So we've applied this set DSCP, and if we click on that policy, it's marking all traffic in the access list voice audio to expedited forwarding. And notice here that we've got all the Cisco QoS mechanisms that you'd want to use. So we can mark, we can queue, we can police, we can shape. So basically any CLI configuration that you can do using Cisco QoS, you can do using this front end, and we make it really, really easy for the user. Okay, so let's go back now and look at our flow. And we can see that all our traffic now is expedited forwarding because we've marked the traffic on the ingress interface. So we also have the second issue. The router's turned orange, the interface is turned orange, so we can see it here, and we can see it in this tree structure view. So again, I'm going to double click on the device. I can see here I've got my shaping policy, so I'll double click on that particular policy or interface. And if I look in the bottom right hand corner here, I can see that my voice traffic, it's been highlighted in yellow, so I've got an issue. If I click View Class Statistics, I can see I'm getting a number of drops. So after my QoS policy, I'm getting about 80 kilobits per second in drops. So I need to modify my QoS policy. And again, I can easily do that by just right clicking on the voice, click on Adjust Output QoS. So I'm going to give this bandwidth 90 kbits per second and save it to the device. So if you had a change window, you needed to create a change control document, you can preview the CLI and you can copy and paste the CLI and put it into your change control document. I'm going to save it to the device because I want an instant quick fix. So give it a few seconds and we can actually view this happening in real time. So my policy is now being pushed to the device, and hopefully we'll get 0 drops. And there we go. So because we've given the quas statement, the shaping policy, enough bandwidth, now we're getting no drops. And you can see here that the router and the interface have both turned green. So if we click back on our flow tab, we can see now we fixed both of those issues. So we've got expedited forwarding on our traffic, and our shaping policy is allowing all the voice traffic through. We've now moved over to our web UI, and we'll go through a few of the different views. We'll take a look at our reporting engine, and then we'll go through a fault finding scenario, and we'll look at a particular flow of interest, and we'll show how we can cross-launch to the underlying packet data. So we're on our landing page here, our overview page, and we can see a number of sites, devices, interfaces, and alerts. And we've got a red, amber, green status here, so anything that's critical and it's red, it's been funneled to the top. And we can filter on this page, so we've got a number of different filtering options. I'm going to filter for a site. I'm going to type in Los Angeles, apply that filter. And now we can see the devices and the interfaces and the alerts just for Los Angeles. So we can see we've got a number of alerts here. So I'm going to interrogate the site further. If I click on the site Los Angeles, this takes me into the device entity page. So I can see my site Los Angeles. I can see it's it's got 100% availability. I've got 2 devices in the site with 4 interfaces. It shows me the applications that are traversing the site, and it shows me the number of active alerts. And to the right hand side here, it builds out a topology view of what the site looks like. And we've got some reports here, so I can see the bandwidth in the site, I can see the top applications, and I can see the the top DSCP markings and top conversations for that site. If I click on the active alerts, we'll see the number of alerts for that site. So I've got quite a few critical alerts I might want to investigate. If I click on the interfaces, you can see here I've got 4 interfaces. One's got a critical alert, so if I click on that particular interface, I go into the entity page just for that interface, so I can see the bandwidth for that interface. I can see the input and output errors. I've got a number of alerts here also. Most of them are looking at or are pointing to quas issues. So if I just go back and I look at one of my reports here, and I've got QoS class drops, I can see the actual quas class drops on the interface, and I can see that for the different classes. Okay, so if I go back to my entity page for the site Los Angeles, I now want to see how the alerts are affecting my applications. So if I click on the applications tab here, it lists all the applications that are traversing this particular site, and I've got an application status. So I'm just going to change that to critical. And you can see I've got 3 applications here that have got a critical error. So we've breached SLA, and I'm getting a reason of what that particular SLA is. So if I click on voice over IP, it will take me into the entity page just for this specific application. And you can see we've got quite high jitter. We've not got a critical alert there, but we've got a warning, so it's turned orange, but we've got a critical alert on packet loss. And we can see the conversations that are using voice over IP, and we can also, it also draws out this topology view. So the topology view helps us really nail down where within the infrastructure the problem resides. So it's really pointing towards, we've got an issue between this MPLS service provider and the router in Los Angeles. And if I click on this particular link here, it will give me some more context, so we can see that we're getting quite high jitter, but that's where we're getting the packet loss in this particular site. Okay, so next I'm going to take a look at our dashboards and our reporting engines. So I'm just going to click on dashboards here. We've got a number of predefined dashboards. One of them is this status dashboard. So you can see here that we've got a number of widgets. So these widgets are actually individual reports that make up the dashboard configuration. So you can see here we've got top sites by WAN utilization, top WAN applications by bandwidth, top devices by CPU, and you can see here I've actually added one of my own widgets. So I've got a widget that's looking at the applications. So we've got a mixture of SNMP metrics with flow metrics in this one view, and you can use the filters again here. So if you want to look for a particular site, you could filter for a site. So again, if I want to filter just for Los Angeles, I can apply the filter and get a specific view of what's happening in that particular site. And we can create our own dashboard. So I'll just move on to this dashboard here. This is a dashboard that one of my colleagues has created. And we've got a number of widgets. We're looking at application network delay, jitter loss, application server delay, and so on. And if I click on one of these widgets, so if I click on the title here, it will actually take me to the report for that widget. So now I can see the underlying report that made up that widget. So again, I'm looking at top applications, and I've got the metrics for application delay next to network delay. So if you've got AVC running on your devices within your environment, you can get performance metrics, and we can compare application delay to network delay. Really helpful metrics, to when the finger gets pointed to the network team, you can run reports like this, and you can say, actually, the network's running fine. It looks like there's a problem at the application layer. So let's go on to create a couple of really simple reports. So if I click on the create report icon here, we've got a number of predefined reports. I'm just going to click on an application report, and we can be as specific or as generalistic as we want to be. So I could look at all WAN devices, or I could look for all devices. I'm going to be a little specific and look for this router here in London. I could change the time period, so I can look for the last 15 minutes, last hour, last day, or I can pick a custom time period. So let's look for the last hour and execute that report. So this is a really simple and easy report to run, but it gives us some really powerful diagnostics and insights into what's happening across this particular router. So we can see all the applications, we can see the packets, we can see the bandwidth that each of these applications are using, and if I want to see the conversations, these reports are interactive. So I can right click on voice over IP, and I want to see the top conversations. I want to see who's using, what IP addresses are using that particular application. And I can see here, it's just between 2 IP addresses. Another report I like to run is, let's get rid of that report, it's IPs and ports. So when I'm doing my demonstrations, I always like to show this particular report, because what I want to show is a particular server. So I'm going to use what we call Flex Search now, the same as what we used when we used a desktop client. And I'm going to be specific and look for a particular server. Okay, so I'm running this IPs and ports report. I've run a flex search that's just specifically looking for this IP address. I want to see all the connections, inbound and outbound, and I'm going to execute that report. So the reason this report is really important is because a lot of our clients are going through migration projects. They're either consolidating data centers and they're moving servers from one data center to another. They might be moving services into the cloud, into different environments. And they really need an understanding of all the connections going to and from that server before they move this server into the new environment. And what normally happens is, if you've not got a tool like LiveAction, you rely on the applications guys, you speak to them and they say, yeah, we've got all these particular applications, this is the source destination ports. But a lot of the time, they can miss certain connections. There might be a connection to a back-end database server or a back-end storage server. And if you don't know that as a network engineer and the server's moved, then you don't put in the correct security policies or perhaps the correct routing. So when the servers move from one location to the other location, you've not opened up all the ports, and that's when you start getting issues. And what I quite often see in our customer environments is that they think they know all the ports. So they test what they believe they should be testing on. They move the server to the new location. They test it on a Saturday. Everything looks good. And it's not until the customers come in on a Monday morning and really start utilizing that server starts bringing up back-end connections, say to a storage server, because the network guy wasn't aware, the security policies are not in place, it's not able to bring up that back-end connection. That's when you start getting problems. And those kind of problems are really, really difficult to diagnose and get to the bottom of. I've seen customers have these kind of issues going on for 3 months and not really understanding what's happening when they've moved the server to the new location. So we typically use this report pre-migration, during the testing phase, and then post-migration, when the users start utilizing the new server in the new location. Okay, so finally, I want to move on to a fault finding scenario using our alerts page. So I'm just going to click on alerts here. And I'm going to try and diagnose a voice over IP issue. So I'm just going to filter here for voice over IP. You can see we've got a number of alerts. I'm going to look at this alert in Los Angeles. So I can see I'm getting packet loss of around 10% again. If I click on the alert, it brings up this side panel. So it gives me a little bit more information. So I can see the conversation here. I can see the site. I could run a report on this particular alert. It's giving me some more details. So it looks like the traffic's marked correctly. Expedited forwarding. I can see my threshold for packet loss, and I can see my my packet loss has breached the threshold. It's around 10%. So if I click on the conversation here, this takes me to our hop by hop view of the path that the traffic took to get from source to destination. So here we can see the source of the IP flow, and here we can see the destination. And we can see the different devices that the flow traversed to get from the source to the destination. And we can also see the service provider here. And we give detail on each of the devices. So we can see, we can see some environmental stats here. We can see the inbound and the output interface. We can see if there's any QoS policies set on the interfaces. We can see the bandwidth, and we can see the performance metrics. And notice here on the router in Los Angeles, again, this is where we're seeing the issues. So we've been highlighted here to a warning of quite high jitter, but we've got a critical alert here for the actual packet loss. So again, just from an alert, just from 1 or 2 clicks, we've really nailed down where within the infrastructure the problem actually resides. And anybody that's worked with voice over IP and had voice over IP issues knows how difficult it is to really find where in the network the issue resides. But we visualize the traffic path, we show you the flow, and we show you exactly where within the infrastructure, the origin of the fault resides. And we can do more than that. So it looks like there's probably an issue on this particular router. We can see here we've got this ingress policer. So we might want to use the client front end to interrogate the cross policy. We can watch it live and perhaps give it a little bit more bandwidth. If that doesn't resolve the issue, we can also cross-launch to our packet capture devices for a deep level forensic analysis of the underlying packets. So I press the peak button here. That will transfer me to the packet capture engine. This will create a file just for this specific flow of interest. I'll press start there. We create the file. So now we can analyze underlying packets just for that flow that we was looking at. So there's all the underlying packets. Our packet capture analysis software has been in development for 20 to 25 years now. We've got a lot of expert analysis tools that really help you find what the issue is with the traffic and underlying network. So that's the end of today's session. I hope you got a good understanding of how you can use LiveAction to understand and monitor what's happening with your network and what's happening with the applications as they traverse your network. You can be alerted on issues, you can diagnose issues, and you can fix those issues proactively and in real time. Thank you.
Thanks, Lee. So we did have a couple questions that came up during the demonstration that I want to make sure we answer. The first question is, how is LiveNX licensed and what types of devices can it support? So that's a great question. LiveNX is licensed based on the number of devices that you want to monitor: routers, switches, firewalls. If any of your switches are stacked, they would consume just a single license. LiveNX is also vendor agnostic, so we can collect any kind of flow data from NetFlow, SFlow, JFlow, IP6, etc. We can also correlate flow data that we ingest by using SNMP polling. The next question that we received is, our team spends a great deal of time building out monthly reports. Does your solution include any recurring reporting capabilities? So yes, as Lee showed during the demonstration, not only can we create custom reports, we also provide you with many out-of-the-box reports based around Cisco's best practices. And those reports can be pre-scheduled as well as customized if you so choose to customize them. And depending on the size of the report, you may decide to schedule the report to run during non-peak business hours when your bandwidth utilization would be at its lowest. We've had many of our customers find that this particular asset has greatly reduced their team's required time to build out reports from scratch. We also had one customer who was actually able to cut an entire week's worth of work that was strictly dedicated towards building out their required monthly WAN utilization report. So it is a very beneficial aspect of LiveNX itself. The last question that came in was, can we monitor our custom applications? So not only can we utilize DPI techniques like Cisco's NBAR and NBAR2 to identify applications within your network, we can also identify custom applications to help monitor and manage your application performance. But LiveNX goes a step further than NBAR and IANA port definitions to allow our users to add custom definitions that would override those names. So that allows you to more easily identify your applications and begin reporting on them. So today you heard about some of the products from LiveAction that can help improve your overall network visibility and reduce you and your team's mean time to resolution. And hopefully you've gained some new insights into how LiveAction solutions work to enable network teams to monitor their network and address some of their key challenges. But if you're looking for some additional information and support, you can get the full picture of how LiveAction can help deliver successful network operations by taking another look at this webinar or by sharing it with a colleague. You can explore the LiveAction channel on Bright Talk to view any of our past webinars for additional insight. You may also request a more personalized one-on-one LiveNX or LiveWire demo session for you and your team. Or you can download free trials of any one of our solutions to try out in your own network. Links to all of these resources as well as others can be found in the attachments tab of this webinar. So with that, I want to thank you all for attending today's webinar and remind you to check back on our website for a schedule of future webinars so you won't miss out. Thanks again.